Hi everyone, my name's Young, I'm a recovered addict. It's a real honour and privilege to speak at any meeting or convention of Cocaine Anonymous. I've got a friend who talks about the blood and the ink. The blood and the ink of our fellowship and what we do here. The ink, the beautiful big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The blood, this here right now. The sunlight of the Spirit that's pumping through my veins at this moment. The smile on my face when I saw a newcomer earlier on. The blood. Is there any newcomers in here today? Lock the doors. It is a cult. You've joined a cult. You ain't going nowhere. You know what? You've hit the jackpot. I used to be a hopeless junkie, a hopeless fiend, heroin addict, crack cocaine addict. And you know, one of the miracles that has happened to me over this weekend, I bumped into someone. There he is at the back, Glenn. Oi, oi. He carried the message to me when I was in a detox in East London. Years ago. I didn't get it that time. But I think sometimes we're just giving crumbs. We're planting seeds. Because that day in Christmas Eve 2018, when I finally got surrendered, I think all the ingredients come into place. And when I look back at my using, and I was just thinking about the word war story. Wow, it was a war out there. Annihilation, desolation, fear. But thank God we've got a solution. And not only that, we have 100% success rate for those who live in a 12-step program and have a deep relationship with God or spirit or power. To me, the word is unimportant. It's the power behind the word. What's it say on there? Steps to freedom. The steps lead me to God. Love, which is one in the same for me, and which is freedom. Because as I'm sat there and I feel connected to the sunlight, it's taken away the fear that was trying to grip me. The fear that was trying to tell me, you're not good enough. You haven't got a message to pass on. Everyone's going to laugh at you. I hope you do laugh a bit. But I can see that's my ego that rebuilds my illness. But war stories, that's where I am. I picked up drugs and alcohol because I identify as an alcoholic as well. At the age of 11, I used to love sniffing glue. I used to love... Any glue sniffers? Oi, oi, we're a dying breed. We're a better class of drug addicts, aren't we? Better class. But the difference is that when I'd leave my pals, I would go home and carry on doing it until I blacked out. I loved the feeling that it produced. And when I first tried acid at about 12 years old, and someone told me if you put it under your eyelid, it will go to your brain quicker. That sounds perfectly sane and normal, and I'm up for it. And it took me to a fourth dimension. I was going to say it gave me a sense of ease and comfort, but no. But I loved feeling messed up. I loved feeling out of control. Don't worry, it's not going to be a massive war story. It won't. And when I found the acid house thing in the late 80s, because I'm quite old, I'm 50 years old in a couple of weeks, and that blows my mind. All the heroin has kept me quite young looking. Because I cannot remember my 18th birthday. I can't remember my 21st. I can't remember my 30th or my 40th. But for any newcomers, the last 6.5 years have been the best. That word best doesn't even do it justice. I cannot bring into words this spiritual awakening that keeps on happening just through following some directions and instructions. And so when I discovered this acid house thing, and I'm coming to a point here, I think, when ecstasy used to be £25, And I do want, and I told this story the other day. I did this pill, well, probably a few, and I'm in this acid house rave. You know, the lasers, the bass line. Everyone's like Paddy said the other day, hugging and loving, and you know, summer of love. And I remember stood there, rushing and all the rest of it, and thinking, I am never going to feel this good again, ever. And I never did until I had a spiritual awakening. And now I feel like that every single day. That's a miracle. Unfortunately, I didn't understand I was in the grip of a progressive illness. I never went down the pub and said, okay, lads, I'm going to stop at 4 because I'm in the grip of a progressive illness and my life is going to come tumbling down and down and down and down. So I smashed through the drugs. And it's kind of irrelevant what we use or what we drink. I know that today. My point, where I was going, was all the drugs and all the eras that I went through, because I used for all those decades. All those decades I used. I can see looking back, because my learning comes from looking back. I'm a slow learner. I often don't know the experience I'm going through as I'm going through it. It's only in looking back. And as I look back and as I reflect, I can see that I was always a seeker. I was always seeking something. I always had this sense of there's something more than just this. Why can't I just be content and happy like those people out there mowing their garden and going to work and all those normal things? I can't seem to tune into something, and I don't know what that thing is until I reach you guys. Until you showed me you were a demonstration of God or spirit or power or love. The most powerful spiritual thing that happened to me when I rolled through the doors of Cocaine Anonymous was someone giving me a hug. It blew my mind because I had a frown on my face. I was wearing rags. I looked like a refugee victim. And I had this frown on my face like a wounded animal to say, don't come near me. I was rowdy. I was aggressive. But you still approached me. And you said things like, keep coming back, and I wanted to smash you in the face. That's where I come from. I've had a complete transformation. I have been reborn, and I cannot believe it. And I had my own version of Ebby Thatcher. You know Ebby Thatcher? Carried the message to Bill Wilson. My Ebby Thatcher was Asian. So even throughout my using, I forged a bit of a career in the music industry, but that came tumbling down because it's really hard to hold down a job when you're doing heroin and crack cocaine every day and drinking a lot of vodka. It's really hard, really difficult. And you're lying and you're cheating and you're stealing and you're hating yourself more and more, because I didn't know that I'm descending into the lower power of existence. I'm like in the upside down world in Stranger Things. I'm part of the world, but I'm not part of the world. I can't seem to connect in. I can't seem to tune in. I'm on the wrong frequency. You're annoying, not you personally. You. It's everyone else's fault that I am what I am. And that is angry, irritable, restless. When I came to you guys, my mind was like that washing machine. I'd been in 2 psychiatric units, so I was mental. I think that was the baby that laughed at that. So I did not know what was going to happen to me when I came into these rooms. That was where I was going, my version of Ebby Thatcher. So I had things at one time in my life, like cars, a house, career, blah, blah, blah. When my youngest children's mother caught me taking heroin in a beautiful family home in Brentwood, Essex. Any Essex crew? She chucked me out. Of course, why wouldn't you? Her life had just come tumbling down. I was that tornado roaring through her life. But I didn't know how to not be that tornado roaring through her life, breaking her heart. And so when she kicked me out, I ended up in Basildon. And I ended up selling heroin and crack cocaine on the streets of Bethnal Green and Mile End, where I used to knock about, where I used to live, for this gang. And it was me and a guy called Sid, a Bengali kid. And we were both junkies. And we'd get paid £100 a day to go and drive around and, to other desperate junkies like us. And I used to always look at Sid and think, he's fucked, man. This was the depth of my delusion. My alcoholic life, my drug addict life is the only one I know. I do not know a different one. Yeah, I'd never get as bad as Sid. Yeah. So, it descended. And when I went into my first detox unit in East London to come off alcohol, methadone, benzos, because I was a subject of king alcohol, king heroin, king crack cocaine, and king benzo. Sounds like a Japanese superhero, King Benzo, doesn't it? Yeah, Mr. Diazzy man, nodding out. So when I was in that place, I didn't understand the illness of alcoholism or drug addiction. I didn't understand that if I had an alcoholic mind, a drug addict mind, the time and place would come, I'm going to use and drink again. My step one tells me that's the case. But I didn't know that. I thought if I take these poisonous substances out of my soul, I'm not going to drink and use again because I don't want to continue the madness and the destruction. So after I come out of that place, and I was really surprised that I didn't feel sprightly. I felt really depressed. I felt really angry because suddenly I've taken the medicine out of me. And if I was sick with any other illness and I take out the medicine, I don't suddenly get well. I understand today that I cannot think my way into a recovered state. I can't think my way into change. There is one that has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. So it says in the big book, and my experience is that today. And so I went into a treatment center, the first of about 5 or 4 that I went into. And I started going to your meetings because someone from the H&I crew had carried this message. Thank God for the H&I crew. Thank God. Thank God for the... when I was early in, thank God for good teachers who told me to respect this space and not talk when people are reading. But thank God for good teachers. Thank God for the elders that showed me this is life or death, not something to be messed around with. We have great fun at stuff like this, but for me, life or death. I do not mess about with this. I take it seriously, but I don't take myself seriously today. So I'm going to your meetings. I'm taking your biscuits. I'm taking your cigarettes because I used to smoke then as well. I'm taking your pounds that you're giving me to put in the pot. But even what I thought were little moments like that are huge moments for a newcomer like me who has no money, who feels ashamed when the pot's going round. And you look at my face and you can see the shame and you really discreetly put a pound in my hand and say, there you go. And when you take me out for lunch and I say, I can't afford it, and you say, just pass it forward when you can. One day you will be able to do that. And so, to my surprise, I went into one of your meetings, and who was doing the chair? Sid. What? He's put on about 3 stone, so he's probably about 7.5 stone now. He's got a new pair of Nike Air Max, because that's pretty standard when we get clean. And he's talking about the steps and God. He's talking about the steps and God. He isn't beating around the bush. He isn't saying higher power. He's godding it right out. And this is the thing. This is the thing. There was some authenticity about him. Look, I am a big book man all day long. I love this book. But for me, it has to be more than words. What are my actions displaying? Can I just quote the book, or am I living this stuff? Am I practicing it very, very imperfectly? Holding it on my hands when I'm full of flaws, which I am. But I went over to this guy, Sid, and I said, I was going to swear then. Oh, I'm going to swear. I said, what the fuck has happened to you? I was absolutely mind blown. This guy that was stood in front of him, there was an absolute transformation. You could say a complete psychic change. But I didn't know that terminology then. I just knew this kid in front of me was absolutely different. There was something about his eyes. You know, it says in the big book, their whole deportment shouts they're a man with a real answer. The way he held himself was different. The way he looked at me was different. The way he didn't ask me for a bit of smack was different. So that got me interested. But still I wasn't there yet, because my self-will is so strong. And I thought, well, this is what used to happen to me in rehab. I'd go in, I'd beg them to let me in again. I'd weigh about 8 stone. I'd look ill, always. Grey in colour. The Walking Dead, they used to call me. The Walking Dead. And I say, look, I'll go to any lengths. I'll do anything you ask of me. I'll get a sponsor. I'll go through these strange steps. I'll read this strange book with strange language in. But then after a couple of weeks, the most important thing to me is I'm not getting the Weetabix that I want. The most important thing to me now is chasing women. Because my mind, the illness that resides in the mind, because also I learned that the main problem centers in the mind, not the body. Because I thought powerlessness meant about this allergy. I put one in, I can't stop. And they said, of course, that's part of, but that's not what keeps sending you back. It's this mental blank spot. It's this twist in your mind. And I often talk about step 1 like the Terminator step. You know, the Terminator? I'll be back. That was my illness every time I detoxed. It didn't say, I've kicked the living shit out of you again. I'll leave you alone now. Now because you've decided you don't want enough, okay, I'll leave you alone. Whatever I did, whatever I thought, whatever promises I made to everybody, I'll be back, was always back, regardless of what I wanted. But then I saw some of you guys, and you showed me there was an answer. And you said, look, we have 100% success rate in the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous. And I said, surely you can't say that. And you said, stick around, you'll see. For the guys who live in the program, and we'll show you what that means. To pick up this simple kit of spiritual toolkits, Young, will show you what that means. Because you are insane. And they were so cheeky to me. They said things like, you're an outright mental defective. How dare they? Any outright mental defectives in here? I don't know why this has just came into my mind. This is where I come from, and then I'm going to flow where the Spirit leads me. Recently, I remember being in this crack house, and I'm nodding out, and someone says, Young, I've got something really important to tell you. And I said, what? He said, heroin's amazing, isn't it? I don't know why. He said, you never get a cold on heroin. Oh. I thought about it, and I thought, no, I haven't had a cold for ages. But then I said, hold on. You're HIV positive and you've got hepatitis C. He said, yeah, but I never get a cold. And in my insane mind, in those moments, I think he's got a point. Yeah. And I do get a lot of colds now. So I'll take you to the end, and let me get into my experience of this and where I'm at today. You know, because it says to tell you in a rough way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. What is my spiritual practice like now? That's what I like to talk about. How am I growing along spiritual lines? That's what I like to talk about. And like Donna, my sponsor Donna said earlier on, you know, she said, Young, surround yourself with other seekers on this path. And I had a beautiful thing the other day from another seeker. And she said, I won't try and do her accent, but she said, Young, today I don't trudge, I glide. Oh, I want to glide. But she's been on the path about 40 years, so I'll probably have to be a bit patient. So the using carried on, treatment centre, hospital, detox, it just carried on in that cycle. And I was saying to someone today, for the last 7 years of my using and drinking, I didn't want to use and drink. There was no, I'm going to miss this. I didn't want to use and drink. I just didn't know how to stay stopped. Because I can stop for a certain amount of time. And then the delusion in my mind grows that I've got some sort of power over this. I don't understand. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Lack of power is my dilemma. I need to be connected to power, to spirit, to God, to light, to love. I need these steps to freedom because right now I'm in the bondage of self. I'm in this prison of my own making. And I look at a little bit like this, the steps. These sacred, majestic steps. Because the God is within me all the time. Even when I was smashed up, I was just very blind. The fire was still there, it was just being burnt out. Because what else is making my heart beat? It's a power. What else is making these words come out of my mind? It's a power. I'm not thinking, it's coming from my soul. And once I connect to that, I feel connected to you. And once I feel connected to you, there's no disconnect. There's no need for me to try and take something, be it drugs, alcohol, or anything else to feel different because I understand I have everything I need in this moment and everything is perfect when I'm connected on this path. And as I was flowing through these steps, like my life depended on it, because I could see my life depends on this. It was almost like, you know when someone's on a desert island and they have 2 sticks and they're trying to make fire, and they do something like that. It was almost like I was doing this until I got a little spark, a tiny little spark. And then I get into the rest of the 12 steps and I start feeding that fire inside my soul. And at first, and I think another speaker said about this, it was quite mechanical. And I went through the stage of trying to bash people over the head with a big book. You're going to die, you need to do this. But I was shown by good teachers. Their example, they never said that to me. They just said, there's the water. If you want it, there it is. If you don't, no worries. I can't force someone to get this, even though it might be from my enthusiasm. And so at first it was quite mechanical. And then like a ballerina, I start getting into the flow. And it just starts becoming who I am. Step 10, step 11, step 12. I start doing these practices again. Chopping wood, carrying water, chopping wood, carrying water. And one day I wake up in the morning and I realize I feel like I'm in the Garden of Eden. I've never felt so much peace in my soul. And I come from a place where I wanted to die for 2 years. My mind was a washing machine. I come from a childhood where I got tortured, where people beat me and treat me very badly. and I'm at absolute peace. I know that I'm not a prisoner of my past, and that's where I was going. It's almost like I started seeing that these defects of character, these things that block me from God, is almost this prison that I've built around me that comes from my childhood. Fear, anger, resentment, and each of these steps, and as I start living them, takes one brick down. More sunlight comes out. More sunlight from you comes in. But then each time I'm back in my ego, in myself, I put another brick up. So it seems to be this constant ebb and this constant flow. So at the end of my using, I'd sold all my possessions to crack converters. I didn't have curtains in my bedroom for 2 years. I sold them to crack converters. I did, actually. They were brand new, but anyway. And day after day was Groundhog Day for me. Lying on the sofa, a cracked phone, going to the chemist, going out to rob, to steal, to doing what I needed to do, same in, same out. That was the gift. That was the, what? What do you mean that's the gift? Because I understand today my best gifts never come wrapped up in a bow and a lovely box. They usually come in desperation or confusion or misunderstanding or something that shifts me and I lean more into God, into spirit, and less into this. Because if I'm relying on this, that would be absolutely insane. The very mind that kept trying to kill me, the very mind that tells me I'm not good enough, the very mind that criticizes, that controls, that compares, that condemns, I'm going to trust that. So today, not all of the time, because I'm a very flawed human being, my mind is not my God. My mind is not my God. And so I got into a psychiatric unit to do a detox. And the first thing I did, and I've only just remembered this the last few weeks, because things keep coming to me. I've done a lot of drugs. My head is, whoa, things keep coming to me. And this came to me. When I got to that psychiatric unit, I got on my knees and I prayed. Like, what? I don't believe in God. I prayed. I was at this place of no return. I'd been dragged to a place of absolute defeat. I can see I was taken to a place of surrender in that moment. And I think back to the time in New York when I had a blade to my throat. This is an atheist and agnostic. And I thought I was going to die, so I scream out for God. And it's always the same. When I'm absolutely desperate, I screamed out for something I didn't understand. Because deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And it says in the big book, and my experience says also, it was only in the last analysis that this power was found. When I'd searched everywhere else for something, and it didn't work. And it burnt my life to the ground. So I went into that place. And there was a very magical moment for me when I look back. One day I was on the floor, quite near the padded cell room, and I was crying. I started crying my eyes out. And I think I was crying because I thought I would die from this illness, and I thought I was going to be one of these people who never got recovery. Because I tried, or so I thought. I thought I'd tried, but of course I hadn't tried. I'd done less than half measures. I'd done less than middle of the road solution. I just come into your meetings, last in, first out. No 12 steps, no prayer, no meditation, no spiritual literature, no helping anyone, no program. So if I have no program, I stay really sick. But I didn't understand. I didn't understand what I didn't understand. And a lady came up to me, and she knelt down, an elderly lady, and she put her hands in my hand, and she put an angel in my hand, which I used to share and say, it's my most prized possession. And then I realized I've lost it because I'm a hopeless junkie still like that. I don't take care of things that I should, most things. And she looked me in the eyes and she said, child, it's going to be okay. Now, I'm not making any claims to that moment. I'm not saying, I had a big spiritual awakening, blah, blah, blah. All I know is I didn't use when I left there and I went into the rehab, which was 2 hours away. And for me, that's miraculous. So maybe there was just something from this woman's heart that entered mine, just enough to get me on the way. And sometimes I think this is how this stuff works. I say I think, because what I know today is that I don't know. And I always want to be like that in this program. Show me. Please show me. Because this is the beautiful thing. We've had some amazing speakers today and yesterday. We have a similar song, but we just sing it with a slightly different melody. And I think it's our differences that is the beauty in this program. It'd be so boring if everyone was just like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's amazing. You know, we often talk about look for the similarities and not the differences. I love our differences. Let's embrace them. Our similarities are, well, the common problem that brought us in here. The common problem. So I went into another treatment centre. Finally, my ears were hearing what you'd been shouting all along about God, Spirit. And you kept saying to me, because as soon as you said the word God, no. You said, okay, do you want to live or do you want to die? The word's not important, but this is the whole point in the 12 steps, is to bring about change, spiritual awakening, psychic change. I didn't know what you had. It looked attractive, some of you. It looked attractive. It looked enticing. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I didn't want what I had anymore. I knew I was going to die from this illness. I knew that I could not bring about change myself. I could not think myself into a changed state, into a recovered state. And so when I came out of that treatment centre, and I was so lucky, I ended up in a place where all they do is big book in there. That's all they do, nothing more. None of this relapse prevention nonsense. Triggers. Triggers. Watch out for your triggers. Big book, that's it. Big book, spiritual awakening, steps, prayer, meditation, prayer, meditation, prayer, meditation. And that was so important for me from day one. And when I look back, how I can tell I'd been surrendered is that I was praying from day one. Even when I didn't believe in God, I was still doing it. Because the guys that were well seemed to be the ones that were doing it. The guys that weren't in and out like I was, were all talking about prayer and meditation and inventory and helping others. And then suddenly I woke up as I was going through the 12 steps. This is all about love and service. God is love. I need to serve. And that's one of the things that's come as a natural, I don't know if that's the right word, of the spiritual awakening. And to any newcomers, it just means change. This change of the soul that's happened to me is that suddenly I just get drawn towards helping you lot. And that's weird for someone like me. I don't even like you lot. But something draws me towards. I think that's my daily surrender. My first sponsor, he said what someone said today. The deal in me taking you through this big book is that you take people through. We teach, so you teach, so they teach. And from that moment to this moment, I've always been in this book taking people through the work because it's a pleasure. It's a privilege. I'm reminded of me when I'm helping someone who's very broken. Hopefully I can be a demonstration of that power and say, I used to be like you and I'm not today. You can have this if you want it. Are you willing to go to any lengths, like someone said to me? And today I am absolutely 100%. Because I didn't know what was on offer was so much more than just being clean and sober. So much more. So much depth. So much weight. So much freedom. Steps to freedom. These simple 12 steps. Trust God, clean house, help others. That's it. The problem is me. I was just thinking of step 10. How much have I got to time? Wrong person. 5 minutes left. Thank you. I don't know why. Step 10 just came into my head because it was drilled into me by amazing teachers that keep coming into my life throughout the world, worldwide fellowship. Trust God, clean house, help others. Steps 10, 11, 12, live in these steps. And I think about step 10 like the Bruce Lee step. Bruce Lee is one of my favorite teachers, very spiritual man. It said, be quick to see where religious people are right, and I am today. I'm also quick to see where martial arts people are right, where you're right, where you're right. I'm more open-minded. My eyes are wider, my ears are clear most of the time. So why I look at step 10 like the Bruce Lee step? There was a film that Bruce Lee did. And he was training a young kid. And they were training, they were sparring. And at the end, they bowed. And in Kung Fu, when you bow, you're meant to look at your opponent. And the kid was young and inexperienced, so when he bowed, he took his eyes off Bruce. And Bruce went, ah! Hit him in the face. And he said, never take your eye off your opponent. Step 10. I've met the opponent and it's me. So now I'm in the habit of watching me. Watch, ask, discuss, turn, watch. I know my time's coming up, so I'll end it on this story. When I was young, I'm still young. When I was younger, I lived in Africa and I used to smuggle drugs around Africa in a little Cessna plane. I lived in a war-torn country. The war was still going on. And so the laws were very lax. And we go to Malawi to buy this Malawi gold weed. And it was very well known back in the day before the skunk and all that. And you'd buy it in dried out banana skins. So you'd fill the plane up and we'd go around to other countries in Africa. Like nearby, neighboring countries. And sometimes in the dry season, we'd be lucky enough to see families of elephants walking along these paths, these ancient paths that lead to the water holes. And who would know the way to the water holes? The wise old elephants, the matriarchs, the bulls. They'd walk this path hundreds of times, maybe thousands throughout their lives since they were a calf. And what do they say about elephants? They've got good memories, not like drug addicts. And so sometimes we watch these elephants. And the families of elephants would just follow right behind, follow. And when I was pondering about this in meditation, it dawned on me, this is what we do here in the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous. I'm just following the elephants, the ones who've walked the path before me. I don't have to work anything out. They've already recovered. They're saying, here's the water, follow me, follow me. And that's all I have to do when I'm surrendered. When there's no more fight in me, when there's no, yeah, but I'm not doing that. Please show me the way. Because rarely have we seen an elephant fail who thoroughly follows our path. Rarely have we seen a person fail who thoroughly follows this beautiful, deep, rich, spiritual path that gets better as the years go by. Today, my spiritual practice is deep, not compared to anyone else, but just for an old junkie like me. I pray a lot. I meditate a lot. I do inventory. I read spiritual literature. I spend a lot of my time helping drug addicts and alcoholics. Why? Because I love it. Because I love you guys. I can love you today without wanting anything in return. And I do. I love you. I do. Because when I love you, I'm loving me. When I'm loving you, I am loving God, the Spirit. And so I'm so grateful today to be stood here with you guys, to have the privilege. I hope I might have said something that someone might have found useful. And I'm just going to end it on a reading, if I may, please. Thank you so much. One reading. Oh, I'm going to have to put my glasses on, man. That's the good thing about getting old. Your eyes go. For any newcomers, I was told about this big book. A big book that's falling apart is usually owned by someone who isn't. So I'm going to end on this reading. From A Vision for You. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little about spirit, about God, about now. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. Join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you so much.